My name is Vivian Washington, and I'm 70 years old. I've been married to Walter Washington for 30 years. We raised 2 children together, built a good life, went to church every Sunday, and I thought we had something real, something solid. But 3 weeks ago, I found out my husband has been sleeping with my own sister, Yvonne. And instead of screaming, crying, or throwing his clothes out on the lawn like most women would do, I did something different. I made one quiet phone call to my financial advisor and changed the beneficiary on my $4 million life insurance policy. Then I went right back to cooking dinner like nothing ever happened. I know what you're thinking. $4 million? Yes, $4 million. Money my husband doesn't even know I have. Money from an inheritance and some very smart investments I made over the years with my financial advisor, a sharp young woman named Simone, who helped me grow my late mother's estate into something substantial. Walter thinks I have maybe $20,000 in a small policy. He has no idea. And now, instead of him getting that money when I'm gone, every single penny is going to the Children's Foundation of Atlanta, a charity that helps kids in foster care. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I found out about the affair, because it's the kind of discovery that changes everything you thought you knew about your life. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Walter told me he was going to play dominoes with his friends at the community center like he does every Tuesday. I believed him because why wouldn't I? 30 years of marriage, and the man had never given me a reason to doubt him. I trusted him completely. Yvonne, my younger sister by 5 years, had called that morning saying she wasn't feeling well and couldn't make it to our weekly lunch date. Said she had a terrible migraine and needed to rest. I felt bad for her. Told her to feel better and that I'd check on her later. I decided to use my free afternoon to go to the fabric store. I've been quilting for the past 10 years, and I was working on a special quilt for my granddaughter Amara's birthday. Beautiful child, just turned 8 years old. Anyway, I was at the store picking out some purple fabric when I realized I forgot my phone at home. Now, normally that wouldn't bother me, but I was expecting a call from my doctor about some test results. Nothing serious. Just routine blood work, but I wanted to hear back. So I cut my shopping trip short and headed home. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed a car parked down the street that looked familiar. A silver Honda Accord, the same car my sister drives. But I told myself I was being silly. Plenty of people have silver Honda Accords. I went inside through the front door, and the house was quiet. Too quiet. I called out for Walter but got no answer. Then I heard it, a sound coming from upstairs. A woman's laugh. Not just any laugh. My sister's laugh. The same laugh I'd heard my whole life. The same laugh we'd shared over Sunday dinners and family gatherings and late-night phone calls when we were younger. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I stood at the bottom of those stairs for what felt like an hour but was probably only a few seconds. Part of me wanted to turn around, walk right back out that door, and pretend I never came home. But another part of me, the part that's stronger than I ever knew, needed to see the truth with my own eyes. I walked up those stairs as quietly as I could. Each step felt like I was climbing a mountain. When I reached the top, I could hear voices coming from my bedroom. My bedroom. The room where Walter and I had slept together for 3 decades. The room where we'd talked about our dreams, where we'd comforted each other during hard times, where we'd planned our future. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see inside. And there they were. My husband and my sister. In my bed. They were laughing about something, completely relaxed. Like this was normal for them, like they did this all the time. Walter had his arm around Yvonne, and she was wearing one of my robes. My robe. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. I don't know how long I stood there watching them. Time seemed to stop. I heard Yvonne say something about how she couldn't believe they'd been getting away with this for almost 2 years. 2 years. Not a mistake. Not a one-time thing. 2 years of lies. 2 years of my sister calling me every week, acting concerned about my life, asking about Walter, all while she was sleeping with my husband behind my back. I heard Walter laugh and say something about how I was too trusting, too naive to ever figure it out. Said I was so busy with my church activities and my quilting and my volunteer work that I never paid attention to what was happening in my own marriage. They actually felt sorry for me, pitied me, called me boring. Something inside me went very cold and very still. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't burst through that door and confront them. Instead, I backed away from the door as quietly as I'd approached it. I walked down those stairs, picked up my purse, and left my house. Got in my car and drove to Brookwood Park, sat on a bench by the pond, and stared at the water for a long time. An older gentleman was feeding the ducks nearby, and he smiled at me. Asked if I was all right. I surprised myself by saying yes, and meaning it. Because in that moment, sitting on that bench, I realized something important. I realized that I wasn't going to let this break me. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. I was going to be smart about this, strategic. That's when I thought about the life insurance policy, the big one that Walter doesn't know about. And I started to smile. I called my financial advisor right there from the park. Simone picked up on the second ring, and I asked her if we could meet immediately. She heard something in my voice and said yes without asking questions. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in her office downtown, and I told her I needed to change the beneficiary on my $4 million policy. Simone looked at me carefully. She'd been my advisor for 15 years, and she knew me well, knew I didn't make impulsive decisions. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Washington?" she asked. "This is a big change." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I told her. She printed out the forms, and I signed them right there. Changed the beneficiary from Walter Washington to the Children's Foundation of Atlanta. Every single penny. Simone made copies for my records, sealed them in an envelope, and I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. Then I went home. Walter's truck was in the driveway and Yvonne's car was gone. I walked into my house like I'd just come back from a pleasant afternoon of shopping. Walter was in the living room watching television. "Hey, baby," he said, not even looking away from the screen. "Where you been?" "Just running some errands," I said sweetly. "You hungry? I can start dinner?" He grunted something that I took as a yes, and I went into the kitchen and started cooking. Made his favorite meal: smothered pork chops, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, and cornbread. Cooked it with a smile on my face while he sat there completely unaware that his comfortable little life was built on a foundation I was about to pull out from under him. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've gone on like nothing's changed. I smile at Walter every morning. I answer Yvonne's phone calls and listen to her complain about her arthritis and her problems at work. I go to church and pray for strength and wisdom. I keep quilting and volunteering and living my life. But everything is different now. Everything. Walter thinks he's won, thinks he's got the best of both worlds. A devoted wife at home and a secret lover on the side. Yvonne thinks she's pulled off the ultimate betrayal without consequences. They have no idea that I'm not the naive, trusting woman they think I am. They have no idea what's coming. The insurance policy was just the first step. Because once I started digging into my marriage, once I started paying attention to the details I'd been ignoring, I started noticing other things. Strange things. Money missing from our joint account that Walter said he spent on car repairs, but our car runs fine. Credit card charges from restaurants I've never been to, hotels in our own city. Phone calls he takes in another room. And then yesterday, something happened that took this whole situation to a new level. I was cleaning out Walter's truck, something I do every month to keep it nice, and I found something tucked under the passenger seat. An envelope with my sister's handwriting on it. Inside was a birthday card for Walter. His birthday isn't for another 3 months, so she must have bought it early. But it wasn't the card that shocked me. It was what she wrote inside. Happy birthday to the man I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Soon we'll be together all the time, and she'll never know what hit her. I can't wait until we can finally be free." I read those words 3 times to make sure I understood them correctly. They're not just having an affair. They're planning something. They're planning to be together permanently. Which means they're planning to get rid of me somehow. Maybe they're waiting for me to die naturally. I'm 70 after all, and I've had some health issues. Or maybe they're planning something worse. That's when I realized I needed to protect myself. I needed to know exactly what they were planning. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought a small recording device from an electronics store. The clerk, a young man with kind eyes, showed me how to use it, how to hide it, how to download the recordings to my computer. And tonight, while Walter is supposedly at his weekly card game, I'm going to hide that device in our bedroom. I'm going to find out exactly what my husband and my sister are planning. And then I'm going to decide what to do about it. But first, I have to get through dinner with both of them. Because tonight is Friday and Yvonne is coming over for our regular family dinner. The 3 of us, sitting around my table, eating my food, pretending we're a happy family. Walter and Yvonne pretending they haven't been betraying me for 2 years. Me pretending I don't know anything. The doorbell just rang. That's Yvonne. I can hear Walter getting up to answer it. I can hear her voice calling out, "Hey sis," like everything is normal. I take a deep breath, put on my best smile, and walk out to greet my sister and my husband, the 2 people who think I'm too stupid to notice what's right in front of my face. The 2 people who have no idea that the woman they're betraying isn't the person they think she is. As I hug Yvonne and feel her pat my back like she cares about me, I think about that insurance policy, about that recording device in my purse, about all the secrets I'm keeping now. And I wonder what they would do if they knew the truth. If they knew that the boring, trusting, naive Vivian Washington they think they know so well is already 10 steps ahead of them. If they knew that every smile, every hug, every "I love you" I give them now is part of a bigger plan. But they don't know. They won't know. Not until it's too late. "Dinner smells amazing, Viv," Yvonne says, settling into her usual chair at my table. "You always were the best cook in the family." I smile at her and think about how that birthday card is now hidden in the locked drawer of my quilting room, right next to the sealed envelope containing copies of my updated life insurance policy. "Thank you, honey," I say sweetly, placing a full plate in front of her. "I made all your favorites." Walter sits down and reaches for my hand to say grace like we do every Friday night. His hand feels cold in mine, or maybe my hand feels cold in his. I can't tell anymore. Everything feels different now. Everything feels clear. As Walter begins to pray, thanking God for this food and this family, I open my eyes and look at both of them, and I start planning my next move. That Friday night dinner was one of the strangest experiences of my life. Sitting there with Walter and Yvonne, passing dishes back and forth, talking about the weather and church gossip and what was happening in the neighborhood, all while knowing what I knew. It was like watching a play where I was the only person who'd read the script. Yvonne kept complimenting my cooking, touching my arm, asking about my health. "You look a little tired, sis," she said with fake concern in her voice. "You taking care of yourself? You know at our age we have to be careful." At our age. Like she was including herself in my generation when she's 5 years younger. Like she wasn't sleeping with my husband and planning God knows what. "I'm fine," I told her, smiling. "Just been busy with the church bake sale coming up. You know how Pastor Jenkins is. He wants everything perfect." Walter barely looked at me during dinner. He was too busy glancing at Yvonne when he thought I wasn't watching. Little looks that they probably thought were secret. Little smiles. At one point, under the table, I saw his foot touch hers. They thought I couldn't see. But I saw everything now. It was like someone had removed a veil from my eyes, and suddenly the whole world looked different. After dinner, Yvonne helped me clear the dishes while Walter went to get ready for his supposed card game. In my kitchen, just the 2 of us, She kept up her performance. "You and Walter seem so happy," she said, rinsing a plate. 30 years together. That's rare these days. You're blessed, Vivian. Really blessed." I looked at her standing there in my kitchen, using my dish soap, drying dishes with my towels, and saying these words with a straight face. And I wondered how long she'd been this good at lying. Had she always been this way? Or had Walter brought this out in her? "We are blessed," I agreed, taking the plate from her. "The Lord has been good to us. To all of us." Walter came downstairs wearing cologne for a card game. He kissed my cheek, told me not to wait up, and headed out the door. 5 minutes later, Yvonne got a phone call. I could hear her in the living room making excuses to whoever was on the other end. Then she came back to the kitchen. "That was Dorothy from the church," she said, grabbing her purse. "Her daughter's having some kind of emergency and she needs me to come sit with her. I hate to run out like this, Viv." "Family comes first," I said, walking her to the door. "Go on. I hope everything's all right." I watched her get in her silver Honda and drive away. Watched her turn left at the corner, the same direction Walter had gone. And I knew exactly where they were meeting. Probably some hotel. Some place they felt safe. Some place where they could be together without worrying about boring, naive Vivian Washington finding out. I went back inside, locked my door, and sat down in my living room. The house felt empty and full at the same time. Empty of the life I thought I had. Full of the truth I was just beginning to understand. I pulled out the recording device I'd bought and studied it. Such a small thing to hold so much potential power. I went upstairs to my bedroom and looked around, trying to decide where to place it. Somewhere they wouldn't notice, but where it would pick up their conversations clearly. Finally, I tucked it inside a decorative box on my dresser, the one that holds my mother's old jewelry. They'd never look in there. They'd never think I was smart enough to do something like this. With the device hidden and recording, I went back downstairs and did something I hadn't done in years. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat out on my back porch. It was a beautiful evening, warm with a slight breeze, the kind of night Walter and I used to spend together, talking about our dreams, planning our retirement, discussing how we'd spend our golden years. I thought about calling my daughter, Rochelle. She lives in Houston with her husband and their 3 kids. But what would I say? "Hi, honey. Your father's cheating on me with your aunt, and I'm spying on them instead of leaving like a normal person would?" No. I couldn't tell Rochelle. Not yet. She worshipped her father. This would destroy her. Then I thought about my son, Darnell. He's in Chicago working as an engineer. Darnell had always been more skeptical of Walter than Rochelle was. He'd mentioned a few times over the years that something seemed off about his father. But I'd always defended Walter, always made excuses. Now I wondered what Darnell had seen that I'd missed. But I couldn't tell him either. Not until I knew everything. Not until I had proof solid enough that no one could deny it or explain it away. So I sat there alone with my wine and my thoughts until almost midnight. Then I went to bed in the guest room. Told myself it was because I didn't want to disturb Walter when he came home late. But the truth was, I couldn't stand the thought of sleeping next to him. Not anymore. Not in that bed where he'd been with my sister. Walter came home around 1 a.m. I heard him stumble around downstairs, probably surprised to find me not waiting up for him like I usually did. He came upstairs, and I heard him pause outside the guest room door. Then he went into our bedroom. Alone. I lay there in the dark, listening to him move around, wondering if Yvonne's smell was still on him. Wondering how many times they'd done this. Wondering what else I didn't know. The next morning, I woke up early like always and went to church. New Covenant Baptist has been my church home for 25 years. It's where I found community after we moved to Atlanta. Where I made real friends. Where I learned to trust God even when life got hard. Pastor Jenkins always has a way of speaking directly to what you're going through, and that Sunday was no different. His sermon was about patience and timing, about how God sees what we can't see and knows what we don't know, about trusting that justice will come in its own time. Sometimes, he said, leaning over the pulpit with that intense look he gets, the Lord asks us to be still, to wait, to watch, not because he wants us to suffer, but because he's setting something up. He's arranging things in the spiritual realm that we can't see in the natural. And when his timing is right, everything will be revealed. I felt those words sink into my spirit like rain into dry ground. That's what I was doing, waiting, watching, trusting that when the time was right, everything would come to light. After service, my friend Francine caught up with me in the parking lot. Francine is 73, sharp as a tack, and has known me since I first started coming to New Covenant. She took one look at me and frowned. "What's wrong?" she asked, linking her arm through mine. "Nothing's wrong," I said automatically. "Vivian Washington, I've known you for a quarter century. Don't lie to me. Something's eating at you." I opened my mouth to deny it again, but then I stopped. I needed someone to talk to, someone wise, someone I could trust. And if there was anyone in this world I could trust besides my children, it was Francine. "Can we go somewhere and talk?" I asked quietly. 30 minutes later, we were sitting in Francine's living room, and I was telling her everything, about finding Walter and Yvonne together, about the birthday card, about the insurance policy, about the recording device. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with every word. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took my hand. "First thing," she said firmly, "you need to talk to my nephew Bernard. He's a lawyer, specializes in divorce cases. And from what you're telling me, you need legal protection right now. That card you found sounds like they might be planning to harm you, Vivian. You can't just sit on this information." "I need proof first," I said. "I need to know exactly what they're planning." "Then get your proof quickly," Francine said. "But promise me you'll meet with Bernard this week. Promise me you'll protect yourself legally." I promised, and she called Bernard right then. Set up an appointment for Tuesday afternoon. That night, Walter stayed home. We watched TV together like a normal couple. He even held my hand during a movie. And I let him, even though his touch made my skin crawl. Because I needed him to think everything was fine. I needed him relaxed and unsuspecting. Around 10 o'clock, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled slightly. Then he looked at me. "I'm going to take a shower," he said, standing up. "Getting ready for bed." "Okay, honey," I said sweetly. As soon as I heard the shower running, I grabbed his phone from the coffee table. I knew his passcode. It was our anniversary. How pathetically ironic. I opened his messages and found exactly what I expected. A text from Yvonne that said, "Missing you. Can't wait for Tuesday. Same place?" His response, sent just seconds ago. "Counting down the hours. Love you. Love you." He told my sister he loved her, using the same words he'd said to me 1,000 times over 30 years, making them meaningless. I took photos of the messages with my own phone, then deleted the evidence that I'd opened his. Put his phone back exactly where it had been. By the time Walter came out of the shower, I was pretending to doze on the couch. Monday morning, I retrieved the recording device from my bedroom and connected it to my laptop in my quilting room. My hands were shaking as I put in my earbuds and pressed play. The first few hours were just silence and normal house sounds. Then I heard the bedroom door open. Walter's voice. "I thought she'd never leave. We only have about 30 minutes before she gets back from the store." Yvonne's laugh. "Then we better not waste time talking." I fast-forwarded through sounds I didn't want to hear. Then their voices again, after. This was the part I needed to hear. "When are you going to tell her?" Yvonne asked. I'm tired of sneaking around. Soon, Walter said. But we have to be smart about this. If I just leave her, she gets half of everything in the divorce. The house, the retirement accounts, everything. We'd barely have enough to live on. So what do? We wait, Walter said. She's 70 years old with high blood pressure and diabetes. Her mother died at 72 of a heart attack. We just need to be patient. When she's gone, everything comes to me. The house is in both our names. The retirement accounts have me as beneficiary. Her life insurance, all of it, will be set for life. They were waiting for me to die, planning their future together on my grave. The insurance policy money they were counting on didn't exist anymore, but they didn't know that. They thought they were going to inherit from my death and live happily ever after. But then Yvonne said something that made my blood run cold. What if we don't want to wait? What if we help things along a little? There was a pause. Then Walter said, "What are you suggesting?" "I'm just saying accidents happen all the time. Old people fall downstairs. They forget to take their medicine correctly. They have strokes. Things happen." "Yvonne, are you talking about... I'm talking about us being together sooner rather than later. I'm talking about not wasting whatever time we have left, waiting for nature to take its course. We could be together right now, Walter, living our lives. We deserve that." Another long pause. Then Walter said, "We'd have to be careful, very careful. It would have to look completely natural." "Of course it would," Yvonne said. "And it will. Trust me." The recording continued, but I couldn't listen anymore. I pulled out my earbuds and sat there in my quilting room, staring at my laptop screen. They weren't just having an affair. They weren't just waiting for me to die naturally. They were planning to kill me. My own husband and my own sister were planning to murder me. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that my legs went numb. Long enough that the sun moved across the sky and the shadows in my quilting room shifted. Long enough that I went from shock to fear to something else, something harder, something colder, something that felt a lot like rage. I made copies of the recording, sent it to my secure email, put the original file on 3 different thumb drives. Then I called Bernard, Francine's nephew, the lawyer, and told him I needed to see him today, not Tuesday. It was an emergency. He heard something in my voice and said yes. 2 hours later, I was sitting in his downtown office, a sleek, modern space with glass walls and expensive furniture. Bernard was 45, sharp-featured, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. He listened to the recording with no expression on his face. When it finished, he looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Washington," he said carefully, "what you have here is evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. This isn't just a divorce case. This is criminal. You need to go to the police." "I will," I said. "But first, I need you to help me protect myself financially. I need to make sure that if something happens to me, they get nothing. And I need to make sure my children are protected." We spent the next 3 hours going through every asset I had. The insurance policy was already handled. But there was more. The house that Walter thought was jointly owned. I'd actually inherited it from my mother, and Georgia law said it was my separate property. Bernard helped me file paperwork to clarify that. My retirement accounts, my investment accounts with Simone, my savings. We made sure everything was documented as my separate property and updated all beneficiaries to my children. "What about Walter's retirement?" I asked. "Am I entitled to part of that in a divorce?" Bernard smiled grimly. "Oh, yes. And given what's on this recording, I think we can make a very strong case that you deserve more than just half. Are you ready to file for divorce?" "Not yet," I said. "I need one more thing first. I need to catch them in the act of trying to hurt me. I need proof that's so solid, so undeniable that they'll both go to prison." Bernard looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Washington, that's dangerous. What you're suggesting—" "I know it's dangerous," I interrupted. But I also know my husband and my sister. They're cowards. They'll only try something if they think it's completely safe. If they think I don't suspect anything, which means I have the advantage right now. They think I'm stupid. They think I'm weak. They think I'll never see it coming. And what if you're wrong? What if they're more dangerous than you think? I looked at him steadily. Then I guess you'll be reading about me in the obituaries. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to make a move, and I'm going to be ready. And when they do, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they are and what they tried to do. Bernard made me promise to at least inform the police of the threat. So we walked to the police station together, and I filed a report, gave them copies of the recording. They said they'd investigate, but explained that conspiracy talk wasn't the same as an actual attempt. They'd keep the report on file, and if anything happened to me, they'd have the evidence. But unless Walter and Yvonne actually tried something, there wasn't much they could do. Which was fine. Because I didn't want them arrested for conspiracy. I wanted them caught in the act. I wanted everyone to see them for who they really were. That night, Walter came home and announced he was going out of town for a few days. Work conference in Savannah, he said, leaving Wednesday morning. Oh, I said, acting disappointed. I'll miss you. He kissed my forehead. I'll miss you too, baby, but I'll be back before you know it. I knew exactly what he was doing, creating an alibi. Being visible somewhere else while Yvonne stayed local and tried something. They were making their move, and I was going to be ready. Because Wednesday wasn't just any day. Wednesday was the day I'd told Yvonne during a casual phone call that afternoon that I needed her help with something, that my basement stairs had gotten a little wobbly, and I was worried about falling, that I needed her to come over Wednesday evening and hold the ladder while I tried to fix the railing. She'd agreed immediately, said she'd be there around 7, and now I knew why she'd been so eager to help. She thought she was going to get her chance, thought she could stage an accident, push me down those basement stairs while Walter was 3 hours away with a solid alibi. But what Yvonne didn't know was that I'd already called Francine, Bernard, and Detective Morrison from the police station, told them what I suspected, made a plan. They'd all be at my house Wednesday evening, hidden in my garage, waiting, recording everything, ready to step in if things got dangerous. Wednesday morning, I watched Walter pack his suitcase, watched him lie to my face about where he was going and what he was doing, watched him kiss me goodbye and drive away. Then I went to my quilting room, got down on my knees, and prayed. Prayed for strength, for wisdom, for protection, for justice, and for the courage to see this through. Because in less than 12 hours, my sister was going to try to kill me, and I was going to let her try. Wednesday evening arrived faster than I expected. I spent the day preparing. Not preparing to be attacked, but preparing to survive and expose what was about to happen. I dressed in comfortable clothes with good shoes, nothing that would make me slip or trip easily. I kept my phone in my pocket with emergency services already dialed, finger ready to press call if needed. At 6:30, Francine arrived with Bernard and Detective Morrison. They parked down the street and came in through my back gate so none of the neighbors would see. I led them to my garage, which has a door that connects to my kitchen. They could see and hear everything from there, and they set up a camera pointed at the basement door. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Francine asked, gripping my hands. "We can arrest her right now for conspiracy. You don't have to put yourself in danger." "I'm sure," I said, though my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "This ends tonight, one way or another." Detective Morrison handed me a small device that looked like a button. "This is a panic button. You press it, and I'm coming through that door in 3 seconds. You understand?" I nodded and clipped it to the inside of my waistband. At 7 o'clock exactly, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, said a quick prayer, and went to answer it. Yvonne stood on my porch wearing dark clothes and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, sis," she said, hugging me. "Ready to fix those stairs?" "Thank you so much for coming," I said, leading her inside. I know it's late, but I've been so worried about falling. You know how clumsy I can be." "Of course," she said, following me toward the basement door. "That's what family's for. Taking care of each other." The words were like knives. This woman, my own sister, was standing in my home talking about taking care of family while planning to murder me. I opened the basement door and turned on the light. The stairs leading down to my basement are steep and wooden, with a railing on one side. I'd deliberately left a few tools at the bottom to make it look like I'd been trying to fix things myself. "I think the railing is loose here," I said, putting my hand on it about halfway down the stairs. "And this step feels wobbly. I'm afraid the whole thing might give out." "Let me check it out," Yvonne said, starting down the stairs ahead of me. My heart was racing. This was it. This was the moment. I stayed at the top of the stairs, watching her examine the railing. She pulled at it, tested the steps. Then she looked back up at me. "Why don't you come down here and show me exactly which step is bothering you?" she said. This was it. She wanted me on those stairs, wanted me in a vulnerable position. "Okay," I said, starting down slowly. I made it about 5 steps down, right behind her, when she suddenly turned around. "You know, Vivian," she said, and her voice was different now, colder. "I've been thinking about something. About how you've always had everything. The good husband, the nice house, the comfortable life. While I've had to struggle for everything I've ever had." I stared at her. "Yvonne, what are you talking about?" "Don't play stupid," she snapped. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Mama always loved you more, gave you more. And then you married Walter. And I had to watch you live this perfect little life while I had nothing." "So you decided to take my husband?" I said quietly. Her eyes widened. Then slowly she smiled. "You know." "I know everything," I said. "I know about the affair. I know about the 2 years of lies. I know about the birthday card. I know what you and Walter are planning." For a moment she just stared at me. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "Well, if you know everything, then I guess I don't have to pretend anymore. Yes, Walter and I have been together for 2 years. Yes, we're in love. Yes, we're planning a future together. And yes, that future doesn't include you." "So you're going to kill me?" I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "That's your plan? Push me down these stairs and make it look like an accident?" She tilted her head, studying me. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for, but not smart enough, because even knowing all of this, you still let me into your house. You still came down to this basement with me. You still trusted that I wouldn't actually do it." "I didn't trust anything," I said. "I just wanted to hear you admit it. I wanted to look you in the eye and see who you really are." "And what do you see?" she asked, taking a step up toward me. "I see a jealous, bitter woman who's about to lose everything," I said. That's when she lunged at me, reached out to push me backward down the stairs. But I was ready. I stepped to the side, grabbed the railing with both hands, and she stumbled forward, off balance. The basement door flew open, and Detective Morrison came rushing down with Bernard right behind him. "Police! Don't move!" Detective Morrison shouted. Yvonne froze, her hand still extended where she'd tried to push me. Her face went from rage to shock to fear in the span of seconds. "Yvonne Carter, you're under arrest for attempted murder," Detective Morrison said, pulling out his handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." As he read her rights and cuffed her, Yvonne started screaming. "She set me up! This is entrapment! You can't do this!" "Actually, we can," Bernard said calmly, holding up his phone. "And we have everything on video. Your confession, your attempted assault. All of it." They led her out through my house, still screaming, still trying to make excuses. I stood on those basement stairs, shaking, and Francine came down to wrap her arms around me. "It's over," she said. "You're safe now." It's over. But it wasn't over. Not quite yet. 2 hours later, the Savannah police picked up Walter at his hotel. Turns out he wasn't at any conference. He was registered under a fake name with a woman who wasn't his wife. When they played him the recording of Yvonne's attempted attack and confession, when they played him the original recording of them planning my death, he tried to deny everything. But the evidence was overwhelming. Both Walter and Yvonne were charged with conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Reed, told me they were looking at 20 to 30 years each if convicted. The news spread through our community like wildfire. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Church members, neighbors, friends, everyone wanted to know if I was okay, if the news reports were true, if I needed anything. Rochelle flew in from Houston the next day, crying and apologizing even though she had nothing to apologize for. "Mama, I should have seen it. I should have known something was wrong." "Baby, nobody knew," I told her, holding my daughter. "They fooled everyone. That's what liars do." Darnell drove down from Chicago that weekend. He was angry, at Walter, at Yvonne, at himself for not being there to protect me. But mostly, he was just relieved that I was alive. "What are you going to do now?" he asked me as we sat on my back porch, the same porch where I'd sat alone just weeks before. "I'm going to live," I said simply. "Really live. I'm going to take that trip to Paris I always wanted to take. I'm going to spend time with my grandchildren. I'm going to finish my quilts and volunteer at the Children's Center and do all the things I've been putting off because I thought I had to take care of a man who didn't deserve my care." "What about the house?" Rochelle asked. "Are you going to stay here?" I looked around at my home, the place where I'd spent 30 years, the place where I'd been betrayed. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to sell it and start fresh, but part of me doesn't want to be driven out of my own home by people who don't deserve that power over me." The trial happened 6 months later. It was brutal. Having to sit in that courtroom and listen to all the details of their affair, their plans, their betrayal. Having to face them both as they sat at the defense table, Yvonne still trying to play victim, Walter looking like a stranger. But the hardest part was when they played the recordings in open court. Hearing Walter's voice talk about waiting for me to die. Hearing Yvonne suggest helping things along. Watching my children hear their father say these things. Watching my grandchildren, who were old enough to understand, learn what kind of man their grandfather really was. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Walter got 25 years. Yvonne got 28 because she was the one who actually attempted to push me. The judge, a gray-haired black woman named Judge Patricia Mosley, looked at them both with disgust before sentencing. "Marriage is sacred," she said. "Family is sacred. You both violated those sacred trusts in the worst possible way. You plotted to take the life of someone who loved you, who trusted you, who gave you years of her life. Mrs. Vivian Washington stood before you in vulnerability, and instead of cherishing that vulnerability, you weaponized it. You will have many years in prison to reflect on your choices." After the sentencing, I walked out of that courthouse into the Atlanta sunshine with my children on either side of me, Francine and Bernard behind me, and a whole group of church members surrounding us. The news cameras were there, reporters shouting questions, but I ignored them all. I had nothing to prove to anyone anymore, nothing to explain, nothing to defend. I was 71 years old, and I was finally free. That was 3 years ago. I'm 74 now, and my life looks completely different than it did back then. I did sell the house eventually, got a good price for it too, and bought a smaller place closer to the church. It's just the right size for me, with a spare room for when the grandchildren visit, and a sunroom perfect for my quilting. I took that trip to Paris, and Rome, and London, traveled with Francine and 2 other ladies from church, and we had the time of our lives. Saw the Eiffel Tower at sunset. Threw coins in the Trevi Fountain. Watched the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. Did all the things I'd dreamed about for years but never thought I'd actually do. My children check on me constantly, probably too much, but I let them because I know they need to. They need to make sure I'm okay, that I'm safe, that I'm happy, and I am happy, truly happy. Not the fake happiness I performed for years in a marriage that was already dead, but real joy that comes from knowing who I am and what I'm worth. The $4 million in life insurance? Still sitting there with the Children's Foundation as beneficiary. I updated my will to leave my estate to Rochelle and Darnell and my grandchildren. They'll be taken care of. But that insurance money is going to help kids who need it most. Kids in foster care, kids aging out of the system, kids who need someone to believe in them and invest in their future. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled everything, if I wish I'd just left quietly instead of going through the whole ordeal of proving what Walter and Yvonne were planning. And the answer is always no. Because if I'd just left, they would have told everyone I was crazy, paranoid, making things up. They would have played the victims and gotten sympathy while I looked like the bitter, jealous ex-wife. But I didn't give them that chance. I made sure the truth came out. I made sure everyone knew exactly who they were and what they'd done. And most importantly, I made sure they faced consequences for their actions. I still go to New Covenant Baptist every Sunday. Pastor Jenkins still preaches sermons that speak directly to my soul. The church rallied around me during the trial and after, bringing meals, offering prayers, sitting with me when I couldn't stand to be alone. That's what real family does. Real family shows up. Real family protects you. Real family loves you without conditions or ulterior motives. Last week, I finished a quilt I'd been working on for 2 years. It's a story quilt, made of different fabrics and patterns, each square representing a different part of my journey. There's a dark square for the betrayal, a red square for the anger, a gray square for the uncertainty. But there are also bright squares, yellow for hope, blue for peace, purple for wisdom, green for growth. The final square, right in the center, is gold, for freedom, for new beginnings, for second chances. I donated that quilt to the Children's Foundation. It's hanging in their main lobby now with a plaque that says, "From Vivian Washington, in memory of the woman I was, and in celebration of the woman I became. May every child who sees this know that betrayal doesn't define you. Your response to betrayal defines you." Sometimes in the quiet moments, usually late at night when the house is still, I think about Walter and Yvonne in their separate prisons. I wonder if they regret what they did, if they understand the magnitude of what they tried to take from me, if they ever loved me at all, or if I was just convenient for Walter and a source of jealousy for Yvonne. But mostly, I don't think about them at all. They don't deserve my thoughts or my energy or my time. They took enough from me already. They don't get to take my peace, too. Next month, I'm starting a support group at the church for women who've experienced betrayal in their marriages. Because if my story taught me anything, it's that I'm not alone. There are so many women out there who've been lied to, cheated on, used, and discarded by people they trusted. Women who think they're too old to start over. Women who believe the lies they've been told about their worth. I want to tell them what I learned. You are never too old to demand better. You are never too old to fight for yourself. You are never too old to start a new chapter. And you are never, ever too old to discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined. My name is Vivian Washington. I'm 74 years old. I survived my husband's betrayal, my sister's treachery, and their plot to take my life. And not only did I survive, I thrived. I reclaimed my dignity, my freedom, and my joy. I protected my children's inheritance. I made sure justice was served. And I proved to myself and everyone else that underestimating an elderly Black woman is the biggest mistake anyone can make. Because we've survived things you can't imagine. We've endured things that would break other people. We've learned to smile through pain and stand tall through storms. And when someone tries to knock us down, we don't just get back up. We rise higher than we ever stood before. That's my story. That's my truth. And if you take nothing else from it, take this. Never mistake someone's kindness for weakness. Never mistake their patience for ignorance. Never mistake their grace for inability. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. Sometimes the woman you think you've fooled has been 10 steps ahead of you the whole time. Sometimes the person you tried to destroy becomes the one who ensures your downfall. Walter and Yvonne learned that lesson too late. I just hope someone else learns it in time to make a different choice. A better choice. A choice that honors rather than destroys. A choice that builds up rather than tears down. A choice that creates love rather than betrayal. As for me, I'm going to keep living, keep quilting, keep traveling, keep loving my children and grandchildren, keep showing up at church, keep sharing my story with anyone who needs to hear it, keep proving that life after betrayal isn't just possible, it can be beautiful. And every single day, I'm going to wake up grateful. Grateful for my strength, grateful for my allies, grateful for my faith, grateful for the truth that set me free, grateful for the wisdom that came through suffering, and grateful for the life I built from the ashes of the life that was taken from me, because this is what victory looks like. Not revenge, not bitterness, not holding on to anger until it poisons you. Victory looks like peace, like joy, like freedom. Like knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth, and never settling for less than you deserve ever again. That's my story, and I'm not done writing it yet. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.